Hey everyone, welcome to episode 4 of my Out of the Park Baseball 24 Washington Nationals playthrough. We have made it to our first off season after a poor showing in our first season, but expected. There are many things to do this off season, but the first thing I want to do is show you guys the results of the playoffs in case any of you are interested. And the TV networks would not have liked these results, as every best of 7 series was a sweep, and the Dodgers swept the Blue Jays in the World Series. But now I want to start kind of the full recap of how all the players performed this season. I've called up everyone, or all the batters and pitchers who at least played for us and are on the 40-man roster still. So sorting by plate appearances, at the top we have C.J. Abrams, young shortstop on the big pieces from the Juan Soto trade, but it was kind of a disappointing year for him. Only 1.1 WAR, but just a 71 WRC plus. And if we go back here, you can see, I think the only reason his WAR wasn't negative was because of his base running. Generated 13.4 base running runs, which is really good. 36 stolen bases at a 97.3% clip. But we got to get it better from the bat for CJ. Obviously, like his speed, his defense is okay. He'll be moved to second base next year. Well, his defense isn't good enough at shortstop. You can see he had -9 zone rating. But yeah, he's supposed to be a leadoff hitter. We need a much better on base for that if he's going to remain there. So unlike Garcia, I'm not going to sign him long term right now. Maybe if his ratings can develop a bit, that'll happen. But I think he's penciled in at second base for next year. Then we have Joey Meneses, who was looking really good for most of the season. Then he cooled down the last 2 months. If we take a look at his batting splits, you can see pretty good WRC pluses for the first 4 months, but then August and September were kind of a disaster for him. And so that kind of brought his season down quite a bit. So he only generated 0.6 WAR. I still think he's a solid player, though. I don't think he's going to be on the team for the long term, just because, he's at DH right now, and so you'd like to have a big bat there. Also, by the way, I didn't mention this, but our scout retired, and so all these ratings look a bit different because they're on OSA. But our previous scout, I believe, had Meneses with 60 contact and 60 home run power. And then Jonathan Daza, the waiver claim, was surprisingly solid for us. Put up 1.1 WAR, hit almost 300. A 92 WRC plus is not bad. But he played solid defense for us in right field as well. And so I'm pretty happy with what we got from Daza. I think most likely he'll be our starting right fielder next year. Although we'll have at least one of our big outfield prospects starting on the major league team at the beginning of next season. And so at least one of our outfielders will be pushed to the bench. But Daza will definitely be on the team to start next year. And then one of the bright spots from the team is Victor Robles, who had a really good year. Hit much better than I expected, almost a league average hitter. Put up 2.4 WAR with really good defense. Also stole 19 bases as well. Robles' ratings, or batting ratings, don't look great. But, he performed solidly. He's got a team option for next year, which I'm obviously going to take, because if I didn't take that, his arbitration estimate would be higher than $3 million. So I'm actually just going to take that right now. And so the next we have Luis Garcia. He was actually out for the last 2.5 weeks of the season after I forced started him at third. But he actually played really good in the time in between when I when I gave him the long-term extension and when he got hurt. So he got up to 1.4 WAR, basically a league average hitter as well. And these ratings are lower from the OSA scout than they were from my scout. So I'm still pretty high on Garcia going forward as our third baseman or maybe left fielder. Yet again, these defensive ratings are lower than what my previous scout said. And I have made an offer to a new scout. It looks pretty good, but he hasn't hired yet since I haven't simmed past when I offered him. But we'll take a look at that in the coaching staff in a bit. I think this is a solid contract for Garcia. He would have been a Super 2 player this year, and his projected arbitration right before I gave him this extension was like $1.8 million. And so we're already saving money on him next year. So I still feel pretty good about this contract. Next, Keibert Ruiz, who was actually our best player this year, putting up 3.1 WAR and a 125 WRC plus. Let's see, it wasn't great defensively, not like horrible either. But his ratings improved. I know this is OSA, but this is pretty similar to a ratings update we got from our scout this past month. In fact, I might be able to find it here. Yeah, so in our previous scout, his potential contact went up and his current and potential power went up, and that made his overall go up to 70. And so that's really good because Ruiz came into the game locked up long term, all the way until 2032. And so if he can put up 3 WAR a season, like this would be a good contract. So that's really nice to see. Moving on to Alex Call. I don't think he's going to be on the team next year. He's got options, so I won't DFA him. Most likely he'll be in AAA. He actually started in left field for most of the season until we claimed Rabley. But he wasn't great with the bat. Let's see, I think, he was a net zero defender. And so nothing too much to say about him. He's an okay player. Could be on our bench next year, but most likely gonna just be depth. Tommy Listell, no point really mentioning, as he was just the throw in to us in that trade with Seattle that got us Emerson Hancock. Ended up not playing great for us, so he's just going to go into free agency. And then Luke Raley, one of the later waiver claims in the season, actually ended up being decent for us. Put up 0.6 WAR in 52 games, just 91 WRC plus. But he's got a decent glove in the outfield and could potentially play first as well. Good personality and a solid bat. So I think he will be on the team next year. Kind of like Daza. I'm not sure if he's going to be starting or on the bench, but I'm pretty sure he will be on the team. And then Lane Thomas, he got sent down partway through the season and then suffered a torn meniscus in AAA. He might. I think I'm going to non-tender him because they'll save us $2.6 million. And with this injury, like his ratings are probably going to go down. He wasn't very good for us anyway. He's not a great defender. So I don't really see a reason to keep him, especially to pay him $2.6 million when he's likely just going to be in AAA. So most likely I'm in a non-tender Lane Thomas. Taylor Walls, this was pretty unfortunate. A guy we traded for from Tampa Bay in the Dominic Smith trade. And I mean, when he was up with us, he was absolutely horrible. He started like 0 for 19 with us. I sent him down, and then I gave him another chance in September, and he still was not good at all. 17 WRC plus, 147 average. And he wasn't great for us in AAA either. He put up a solid WAR because of his defense. But OSA has him at 30 contact. I think our scout had him at 35 contact. I don't think I'm going to DFA him. I could. He'd probably pass through waivers. But most likely he's going to be AAA depth because we've got another couple of players who I'd rather have as the utility infielder next year. Next, Ildemardo Vargas, another guy I think I'm in a non-tender because his estimate is 1.6 million. 0 WAR. He was fine, I would say. 277 average as a utility player is okay, or average doesn't really matter, but because his on base was terrible. But a 76 WRC plus, he didn't play a ton. But there's no reason to keep him on the team when we can get a better utility player for a minimum salary. And then Jonathan Aranda, who was an August call-up, the main piece in the Dominic Smith trade. That also brought us Taylor Walls, and he was very good for us in the limited time he got. He was doing a lot better than this. I think he had like a 140 WRC plus or something. But then these last 5 games, he didn't get on base once. But I'm pretty sure he'll be our starting first baseman next year. Maybe DH, but he's got some versatility too, which is nice. He can play second and corner outfield. So, Walls didn't really work out from that trade, but Aranda so far definitely has. So I'm definitely liking that trade. Next back catcher, Juan Centeno. Another player I think I'm in a non-tender just because he's asking for some real money. 1.2 million is his estimate. I think we can get a better backup catcher than this for the minimum. Maybe I decide to keep him. I'll think about it some more because he wasn't bad for us after we claimed him. He finished the season really strong, actually, hitting-wise. Actually need to take a look at his defense. So he did have a positive zone rating, which is better than Ruiz. Or wait, no. Actually, I guess Ruiz did have a positive zone rating. I need to take a look at his framing. Okay, yeah, so his framing wasn't great. It looks like about the same rate as Ruiz. Yeah, so I'm probably going to look to get a better backup catching option. We also have Pineda down here, only got 13 plate appearances, but he's got worse defense. Does have great personality, but he'll probably be the AAA catcher again. And then Carter Kieboom, unfortunately, I think I'm going to DFA him. So he's also going into arbitration. And, he really doesn't give us any value. He's not good defensively. He's not a good hitter. I just thought it'd be cool to give him one last chance at the majors this year, since he was a former first-round pick. But I think he's officially a bust, and we're probably just going to DFA non-tender him and release him. And last batter, not really worth mentioning, just 8 plate appearances from Jeter Downs. Got some hits. I'm probably going to DFA him because he'll pass through waivers, and then I can keep him on the AAA roster. He's okay depth because he can play all 3 infield positions pretty solidly. Moving on to the pitchers, though. We got a very nice season from Josiah Gray. Put up 3 WAR, 4.25 ERA, and 4.2 FIP. What's funny is he's an extreme fly ball pitcher with really low movement. Yet he was like one of only 3 guys to allow less than 1 homer per 9 on our team, which I'm not sure how. Maybe we just got really lucky. Hopefully that's not the case, and he doesn't regress next year. But he's got really nice stuff, average control. It'd be nice to see him have more stamina, but I'll absolutely take 2.9 WAR from Josiah Gray. And our other young starter, Mackenzie Gore, also had a similar season to Gray, not quite as good, but pretty solid with a 4.55 ERA, 2.1 WAR. He's still got room to grow. This is pretty similar to what our scout had before he retired. I'll take this as well from Gore. Control's a bit of an issue for him. But like Josiah Gray, didn't allow a ton of home runs. He's got good stamina as well. So I am happy with how Gore played. Patrick Corbin gave us basically what we expected. He's really an innings eater, making $24 million, which is not good at all. I guess, at least he wasn't negative WAR at a 5.71 FIP. So we have to survive with him for one more year, and then he'll be gone. And Thad Ward was our most used reliever, although it's mainly because he started a number of games. Rule 5 draft pick, wasn't great. He would have been sent down at some point if he wasn't a Rule 5 draft pick, but I figured we might as well just keep him the entire season since, why would I release him? He has some value. And so he also put up 0 WAR, had an okay FIP. I like, his stuff. He's got 4 good pitches. I still feel like he could be an okay long reliever, but most likely he won't make at least the Major League roster next year. And Anthony Banda is kind of a surprise in a good way with a 3.74 ERA, despite not having very good ratings. He is in arbitration, asking for $1.3 million, and I think I will give that to him. He's only at 30 overall, but he's a lefty, which makes him useful. He's got 2 good pitches, and he played well, so I'm going to keep the guys that play well around. And the other lefty, Matt Cronin, he really improved his numbers in the second half of the season, which is nice to see, because I do like Cronin as a solid lefty out of the bullpen. You put up 0.8 WAR, which is solid. Got his FIP under 4, and his ERA under 5. Also a good personality too. So he'll definitely be on the team next year. Mason Thompson, another solid young reliever. I think his second half of the season was worse than his first half. We can look at that. Yeah, his August and September were not good. But he still had an okay season. 0.3 WAR for a reliever. It's not bad. He's like our only ground ball pitcher. He's got solid movement, solid stuff. So I'm pretty sure he'll make the roster next year. I'm not going to guarantee it though, since most of the relief spots will be a pretty wide open competition, I think. Chad Kuhl, he'll just be going to free agency. His FIP actually wasn't bad for us at all, considering his ratings. But his ERA was pretty bad. And then Erasmo Ramirez, another guy going into free agency. Another guy whose FIP was way lower than his ERA. Just filled in a long relief role. I think he had 2 injuries over the course of the season. Also made a couple starts for us. Actually, it's one thing. There's a lot of different guys to make starts for us. We had Cole Henry, who was a follower when he was up, but we also just had a lot of guys like shuffling around that fifth starter spot since my manager was controlling the lineups and pitching staff. And our closer, Hunter Harvey, put up a solid season. FIP just below 4. His ratings are higher with my old scout. And so I don't think this is accurate. So he's probably not going to be in the closer role. That's something I'm going to look for in free agency as a better closer. But he could definitely be in a setup role. Well, actually, I'll probably be used in stopper next year. Harvey could be that. Maybe. Definitely wouldn't prefer it, though. And one of our waiver claims in the bullpen, Steven Nogosek. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Nogosek, maybe. He's got pretty solid ratings, and he was pretty good for us after I claimed him. Put up 0.7 WAR and 3.69 FIP. He had pretty good control, too. Didn't allow a ton of home runs. Looks like the movement kept them in, despite being a fly ball pitcher. So he'll definitely be back as well. Tommy Malone, one of the guys from the Seattle trade, who just going to free agency. Not much to say there. Victor Arano was our best reliever. He missed first 2 months of the season, I think, maybe 1.5 with an injury. But he pitched very well for us, 1.4 WAR, 2.59 FIP. He was our best guy in terms of homers per 9, by far, actually. Corey Abbott, beginning to get DFA'd. He was terrible for us. He was actually our 5th starter to begin the season, but got sent down after first month and a half or so. Then he wasn't even good in AAA and AA. So yeah, that's easy DFA decision. Cole Henry, the guy we called up for September call-ups, just to give him a shot. Unfortunately, he wasn't good in the follower role. I still like his ratings, though. They're a bit better than this, actually, with my old scout. Or I guess the potentials were the same. He had 55 current movement. He might be my number 5 starter next year, or number 4 starter. But he might be a long relief if I can trade or sign someone to be a starter. And then Strasburg was absolutely awful after coming back from thoracic outlet syndrome. Yeah, it's going to be tough to get through this contract. I'm still definitely not going to trade it because that'd be unrealistic. But hopefully this was kind of a fluke in a small sample size. Hopefully his ratings don't go down, and hopefully his selfish personality doesn't hurt the team too much. But yeah, he was awful after coming back, which was sad to see. Then Evan Lee, another guy who'll probably DFA just to get off the 40-man, but he'll clear waivers and I can put him in AAA. He was another guy who kind of tried out as a 5th starter, long reliever, and was not good. Alberto Baldonado, a guy who was in AAA most of the season, but I called up a couple of different times late in the season to be a lefty in our bullpen. He's more of a specialist, which I like. I think I will keep him on the 40-man, even though he wasn't very good. He probably won't make the major league team, but he'll be like the first lefty to get called up from AAA if there's an injury. And then lastly, Isaiah Campbell, who came in from one of the trades with Seattle. He was super good in AAA for us, and so I gave him a shot in September. But unfortunately, he was really bad in 4 2/3 of an inning. Allowed 4 homers per 9, wasn't striking anyone out, and bad control too. But I still think there's a good reliever in him. This super small sample size, so nothing really to worry about here, because he is also a ground ball pitcher. And so I think unless he is really bad in spring training, he should make the roster next year. All right, so I DFA'd the guys that I mentioned in the recap, plus 2 other guys, Tommy Romero and Michael Chavis, who I didn't call up because they didn't really play for us the last season, but they were on the 40-man anyway. I recommend all players to do this just because it frees up a bit of money. Because if they're not on a guaranteed contract for the next year, DFAing them right at the start of the offseason means that you won't have to pay them next year. It also just frees up spots on the 40-man for waiver claims or Rule 5 draft picks. But that is the next thing I want to do is take a look at the waiver wire. There's always a ton of guys on here right when the offseason starts. And it's not as many good players as usual. Or I guess there's never usually good players. But there's usually more guys I'm interested than this. But there's 2 guys I think I'm going to claim. Mike Bauman, they're both pitchers. Mike Bauman, a relief pitcher, who was pretty good for Baltimore last year. I like his stuff and movement ratings. He also throws pretty hard, and he's at least neutral on his tendency. So I'm going to put a claim in on him. And also Michael Grove from the Dodgers. Had 24 innings with them. Pitched okay. But I'm interested in him because he's a bit younger. Could potentially be a starter. He's got good stuff. He is extreme fly ball. But, as we saw with Josiah Gray, that didn't really hurt him last season. So I can claim him as well. If Grove's ratings go down when we get our new scout, maybe I'll just DFA him. But yeah, for now, just going to claim those two guys. The next one, take a look at arbitration. So there's a couple of guys that DFA'd or just I'm not going to. Yes, I'm going to withdraw from Rainey. Chavis is already withdrawn. And then Keyboom, since I DFA'd him. Vargas. And then I think I am going to withdraw from Lane Thomas with that injury, and he wants $2.6 million. He's unlikely to make a roster next year anyway. And then, Centeno, I also DFA'd. Yeah, so we only have a couple of guys to actually give offers to. Yeah, so my tip with this is they're always going to accept whatever their estimate is. You can usually offer slightly lower than that, depending on what their greed is. It's like Arano, it doesn't show what his greed is, so I'm just going to offer him like 40,000 below his estimate. And Banda, same thing. And then Harvey, you want to check their promised role. I don't want to promise Harvey the closer role. So I might want to offer him a bit closer to his estimate, because not giving him that closer role might make him less happy about that offer. And then Daza, last guy, still nothing on his greed. And so he should accept that. Also, so we did fire our manager. I'll go over the coaching staff after. There's a bunch of guys I offered, so after they accept, I'll go over that. But I did want to take a look at the new owner goals. Don't suck completely again. He wants us to increase attendance. Wants us to have a final total balance of $22 million, which is no way that's gonna happen because we're in a pretty tight financial situation. Increase fan interest, and then building the team up to reach playoffs the next 4 seasons. It's pretty standard stuff there. And then we do have the new top 100 prospect list, and because of Dylan Cruz, we're actually up to 6th now in the system rankings. So Dylan Cruz ratings look a bit different because they're on OSA, but he's the number 6 prospect, and Wood at 27, Hassel at 32. And then Adam Macko, who we traded for with Toronto in kind of a prospect swap, is the last prospect on the list. And according to OSA, it looks pretty good. Definitely starting AA next year. But funny enough, the guy who we traded to the Blue Jays, Pablo Aldona, is actually number 93 prospect, but his ratings look a lot worse. And I mean, this is about what they look like when we traded him, so I'm not sure why he is the number 93 prospect. I'm not really too worried about that trade, though, just since Macko's ratings look a lot better. I've now simmed up to the start of free agency, but before I talk about my plans there, I want to go over the new coaching staff, as I replaced almost everyone to start this offseason. Only the assistant GM, the first base coach, and the team trainer remain from last year's staff. First, I hired a new manager, Byron Nichols. The main reason I hired him is because he has good relationships with basically all the players. And he was the only guy like that had at least a lot of like excellent ratings, all basically all excellent and good. And then he's not very controlling. Lets me set all the lineups and hiring coaches. Doesn't have the perfect like strategy set up, but fortunately most of this I could change. But like like I'd like the left-right batting matchups to be higher than what he allows. But still a pretty good setup there. The new bench coach, Mike Sabins, basically just hired him because he's legendary at teaching infield and outfield defense. Only average relationships. But, he looks like maybe he could be a future manager for us after Nichols because he's only 46, while Nichols is 60. And then pitching coach, Brian Souza, pretty simple. He's legendary at teaching pitching as well as handling development and influencing mechanics. He has good relationships with all the pitchers, which is really all that matters. I don't think these poor relationships with the batters really matter. And Joey DeMonte is our new hitting coach. I think this is a popular guy for OOTP players to hire. He's got legendary teaching hitting, outstanding development, and good other ratings, as well as good relationships, especially with the batters. And then Nick Jackson, new third base coach. The bench coach I hired had legendary infield and outfield defense. So I needed a guy who was legendary at teaching catching. And then he also has good relationships with the players. And then the scout, James Johnson, he's highly favored tools, which is the best scouting preference. And then he's outstanding at everything else. And this kind of shows why I hired RJ Harrison, knowing he was going to retire. It's because usually there's at least one really good scout like this that the game generates after the first season or two. So before I go into free agency, so I want to take a look at the international free agents. And unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to sign any of these guys. Usually there's at least one like pretty good player or like a really interesting prospect. But as I quickly go over these guys, see none of them are good at all. I don't think any of them are going to sign for a major league contract. So usually I'm excited for the international free agents, but I don't think I'm going to be signing any of them this year. So if we look at our team, there's the biggest toll for sure is at shortstop. Abrams is definitely moving to second because his range actually went down to 55 in the most recent scouting report. And so currently I have Taylor Walls there. Taylor Walls and then also Riley Unruh, who we got from Seattle, are like the two guys in our organization who I would consider being the starting shortstop next year. But that is it's definitely one of the biggest priorities in free agency. But unfortunately, as you can see, we do not have much money, only $8.3 million. And that's after me putting in a bit more into the scouting and development budgets. Those still aren't very good. I only added like $3 million to each. But they're really, if you take a look at the salaries, there isn't really any way to free up more money. Because I'm not going to trade Robles since he's a really good defensive center fielder. Then I'm not going to trade Corbin or Strasburg. It'd be impossible anyway. Then, there isn't really anyone else making major money. Unfortunately, we're retaining Trevor Williams' salary for this year, and then Ruiz is making significant money. But there isn't really anyone to unload from the books there. And so I think we're kind of stuck where we're at financially. Because, we don't even have any money put into international FA. I will still be signing some guys there, but I might not have enough to pay a guy the maximum there. But next year, after Corbin's contract comes off, we should have, yeah, so we're projected to have 32 million for extensions. So this is probably the last year where we're kind of in a pickle in terms of the financial situation. But my plan at shortstop is to kind of just have it be a tryout between like Walls, Unroe, and I think I'm going to sign Paul DeYoung, because at least he's really good defensively at shortstop. His bat is not good at all. Played terribly for St. Louis last year, but he does bring some power, which our team really needs. We were like second to last in the AL in home runs last year. So I might sign DeYoung to like a 1 million, 1.2 million, or 1 year contract. I'm also thinking about Iglesias, although I'd probably only sign him if I can get him on a minor league deal, like later in the offseason if his demand drops. Because he's not as good defensively. Kind of has a similar batting profile to Ildemardo Vargas. But he actually played better than DeYoung last year. But I do like DeYoung's defense better. And maybe I consider signing another one of these guys to a minor league deal. But I think there's a couple of guys up the top, but we can't afford, like Nick Ahmed or Elvis Andrus or Brandon Crawford. So I think Paul DeYoung's going to be like the best guy we can get for a really cheap contract. So there are a couple other things I'm looking to get in free agency. Probably an innings eater, starting pitcher. If you take a look at what it's looking like right now, we've got, so I think Gore, Gray, Strasburg are locks for the rotation, and then probably Corbin as well. Just because we're paying him $35 million, and yeah, I mean he should be a starter. Grove, guy who claimed off waivers, looks okay as a starter, but definitely prefer him to be in the bullpen. And then Cole Henry could be a starter for us, but his ratings look really good as a reliever, so I'm thinking he'll be a stopper for us, actually. Which means we could sign one starting pitcher. And there's a couple of guys I'm considering getting good scouting reports on. Domingo Herman, Joe Ross, and Jack Flaherty. All these guys are decently similar. They're all asking for 2.2 million or less. None of these guys look great. I'm probably favoring Flaherty. I don't know, he just looks a bit more interesting. He's the cheapest of them, and he's also the youngest of them. But I think Flaherty did pitch the best of them last year. Yeah, Ross at least is a ground ball pitcher, but he doesn't have high movement. At least Flaherty has more than 3 pitches, unlike Herman and Ross. So most likely I'll lean Flaherty, but it's definitely going to depend on the scouting reports. And if like another team goes after one of these guys, I'm probably going to be out on them because we're so tight for money that I basically have to sign one of these guys for like 2 million or less. And then we also need a backup catcher, since I ended up not bringing back Centennial, who's looking for 1.3. Of course, he's impossible because I cut him. But Hedges seems like the obvious guy to bring in here, since right now he's looking for a minor league contract. And, he's basically the best defensive catcher in the game, captain as well, with a great personality. And so I'll probably just sign him, although he is asking for like a major league option, so I'll probably bump that down. But as long as we don't put him on the 40-man until, like spring training or something, that won't really affect the amount of money we have for international amateur free agents. And so I think it's fine to give him some money on the major league option. All right, so I've decided to go all the way up to the beginning of spring training before updating you guys. I would have liked to go through the off season in more detail, giving you guys updates at each stage. But the video is getting a bit long, and I wanted to get through the whole off season in this video. But if you guys want to see the off season in more detail, definitely let me know, and I can try to do that going forward. But I might have to break up the off season into 2 videos. This wasn't a super eventful off season anyway. You might be able to tell from the roster we did do some things, but it'll probably be less busy than most off seasons. I also apologize for not showing the awards. I meant to do that, but it kind of just slipped my mind in the last clip. Although none of our guys won anything, and none of our guys got even a single vote in anything anyway. So it wasn't much point in looking through that. But we do have number of transactions to look at, so I'll just start from the beginning, or from when free agency started. So we did make 2 trades pretty quickly. This was mostly to try to get salary off the books and kind of restructure the roster a bit. You'll see, so first we traded Daza and Hunter Harvey, who were both guys I wanted to keep, but they were both making over the minimum. And at the time, we were really tight on money. You'll see that kind of changed a bit later in the offseason. So we traded Daza, who's solid outfield defender with an okay bat. 30 years old, making almost $2 million. Trade him, and then Hunter Harvey, who was our closer last season, but was not likely to stay in that role this year. But he was making almost $1.4 million. And so I thought he was expendable, 29 years old as well, so not young. And then we had to throw in Paul Witt, who Braves already released. So we actually got a new shortstop here. This was the main reason I did this trade, to get Braden Shoemake, who has 65 infield range, a 60 rating at shortstop. Pretty young, at just 26. Really controllable. Hasn't even been in the major for a full year. Obviously making the minimum. And so this was kind of where I decided to do at shortstop instead of signing a guy like Paul DeYoung. There's still going to be a competition in spring training, but Shoemake is definitely the most likely guy to be our starting shortstop. Then I also got Huascar Yanoa, who's coming back from Tommy John surgery, so he doesn't have a ton of value. I expect his stamina to go down probably when he comes back from this injury, but I'm thinking he could be a solid reliever for us. I mean, right now his overall is a 50 as a starter, and so that should go up. He doesn't look great as a starter from these ratings, but he's a ground ball pitcher and throws decently hard. So he could be maybe back end of our bullpen type guy. And then just a few days later, I traded Luke Raley. Main reason was to get rid of one of our left-handed outfielders, because our lineup is super left-handed heavy, because all 4 of our infielders, now with Shoemake, are left-handed. And so, I didn't want to give up Raley because he's got a good personality and a decent bat. But he's 29. I was able to get younger guys for him. 2 right-handed outfielders, so I'll talk about the guys who gave up first. Dalen Lyle, a 21-year-old, okay outfield prospect. He was in rookie ball last year, did solidly. Orioles actually have him in high A, but I don't see this guy as being much of anything. So I was perfectly fine giving him up. And then a throw-in pitcher. Here, nothing really there. But we did get back a couple interesting guys. The main guy I wanted was Judd Fabian, 23-year-old right-handed center fielder. He's probably going to start in AAA for us, but he's could make the majors. He played decent for Baltimore there, but he's interesting because he can actually play center. 65 range and error, definitely acceptable for center. So even though he won't start on the team, he could be a pretty good fourth outfielder for us. And a good insurance in center if we have an injury. And then also picked up Ryan McKenna, who could be utility outfielder for us. Yet again, I picked him up because he's right-handed, making the minimum, and decent center field or decent outfield defense. I wouldn't want him playing center much. Bat definitely doesn't give you much, but I was mainly looking to flip Rayleigh for some left-handed outfielders. Although then I kind of counteracted that by taking Cameron Meisner, a left-handed outfielder in the Rule 5 draft. He can also play center with 65 range, not as good as Fabian. But yeah, he kind of just replaces Rayleigh on the roster. Good speed, good outfield defense, a solid bat. But he put up 4.4 WAR for Tampa Bay and their AAA team. So it definitely should have been protected by them. But that was the only pick we made there. Yeah, he's probably going to start actually for us in right field. You'll see who our left fielder will be. Then made a waiver claim, Giovanni Moran, very interesting left-handed reliever who might be our left-handed stopper or at least a setup guy. He is kind of a specialist, but he still has pretty solid ratings against right-handers. And he pitched very well for Minnesota in their bullpen last year. So I'm not sure why they waived him, but I think this is a really good claim. He does have 35 stamina, which is why he could be a stopper. Let's see then, a couple minor league free agent signings. Kevin Biggio, who has a shot at making a roster as a bench player because he's a captain with great personality and very versatile defensively. He has a left-handed bat, which I don't like because I'm trying to get more right-handers on the team. But he's got great eye, not good contact or avoid Ks. But I love his versatility and personality. And then Hedges, we did sign him with the major league option, $1.8 million. Also a captain with great personality and super good defense at the catcher position, but no bat at all. I did sign another guy, you'll see, who is going to be in competition with Hedges for the backup catching job. So then international amateur free agency. Sorry, it started late January. One of the funny things happened. This was a scouting discovery, but it's a pitcher named Juan Soto, which is hilarious since, of course, Juan Soto was the great bat for the Nationals. They traded away 2 years ago from this time. Yeah, so then we did get a really good international free agent here, Arturo Rosario. 80 contact potential, 80 avoid Ks, 95 gap. Maybe could play third. Probably a first baseman, DH, but he definitely has the arm for third. Just the other ratings aren't quite good enough. I think he was like the second best bat out there, but I probably wasn't going to be able to get the best bat, so I just settled a bit to try to get Rosario, but that allowed me to sign a couple other guys. So we signed Sidney de Goose out of the Netherlands. He's got a good personality as well, and a well-rounded bat. Decent defense for maybe second or third. Although, actually no, I guess, yeah, OSA I think had him at a 45 potential before, which concerned me a bit, but now that's gone up, so. But he was not, there was not much interest for him. See, we only signed him for $750,000, which was a bit surprising. But I think that was a good signing. And then February, yeah, so we made a third signing. Julio Nieto, mainly got him for his 70 outfield range. Not much potential with the bat. But it's always good to pick up guys that can play center, and then if the bat develops into anything, he has a good shot at making the majors. Then on February 4th, we signed more minor league guys, or minor league free agents. Omar Narvaez is the other guy who will be competing with Hedges for the backup catching job. He has a much better bat than Hedges and still has 65 catcher ability. So if he hits really well, he could win the job. But most likely it'll be Hedges since he's a captain and has best catching defense in the game. And then Frazier, just depth basically. He's not going to make the team unless there are some injuries in spring training. Because he's a left-handed bat, so there's not much use for him on the bench, especially since I'd rather have Biggio on the team. But he's got good defense to play almost anywhere. Probably can't play short, but play all three outfield positions and second. And then there was this 21-year-old pitcher who, for some reason, was out there, and he's got good stuff potential, 4 good pitches, so thought there was no point not signing him, so he'll start an A-ball for us. Then we got Chris Taylor, another minor league free agent. I got him because he's a right-handed bat with kind of big splits, and we need a guy or like a bench guy to be a right-handed bat to maybe a platoon somewhere. I'm not quite sure. Maybe he might end up being a DH, but there's going to be kind of a competition for that spot, the last spot on the team. We'll go over that more when we look at the spring training roster. But yeah, and so we signed Martin Perez, which I know I talked about signing Jack Flaherty or Domingo Germán or Joe Ross. So I made the offer to Flaherty, but then surprisingly there ended up being a bidding war. And by the time I looked at other options, both Ross and Germán had been signed. But then fortunately, I think it was like January 29th or whenever the preseason technically begins, we got a boost to our budget. So after kind of a bidding war with Flaherty, I just thought it would be better value to grab Martin Perez. So I signed him to a 1-year, $6.5 million deal. I love his movement control and also can kind of be an innings eater with 65 stamina. He's actually our number 1 starter right now. But I think he'll have a lot better trade value, potentially at the deadline, than a guy like Flaherty would have. So I think this was the right move since we had the money. And that also allowed us to, so that's basically it for transactions. And yeah, so that boost in the budget allowed me to put a lot more money in development, scouting. I think I put $1 million more in the draft budget as well. And so we're looking a lot better there. And we still have a bit of money to acquire players through like waivers or trades, which is nice. So we're looking pretty good on the salary page because this is going to drop. Yeah, it's projected to drop by $38 million. Corbin's contract, of course, comes off the books. Also, like the Williams contract we're retaining. Robles probably won't re-sign, and then Perez contract comes off the books as well. So I think I'll briefly go over a couple things from the lineups and pitching staff. I'm not going to go over this a ton, but just highlight a couple places where there's going to be competitions. So Shoemake, I'm not going to guarantee in the shortstop spot, as I mentioned earlier. So we do have Riley Unroe and Taylor Walls. It's probably mainly between Unroe and Shoemake. Because I do like Unroe a lot. I think he's very likely going to be a utility infielder, though, for us. Because Shoemake does have the better defense. Although, actually, I think I'm actually going to platoon them. Since Shoemake is a lefty, because that's why I have it set right now. And so James Wood right now is going to be our starting left fielder. That could potentially change if he has a terrible spring, but I think even if he does, I'll still put him out there because I believe he is ready with how he played last year. And his ratings are ready. They're not fully developed or anything, but I think he's ready for the majors. And then Misner right now is a starting right fielder, or Meisner. But I'm not going to guarantee him that either. It could be like McKenna or even like Fabian or Call if they have super good springs. I don't think I'm going to start Hassel in the bigs. I'm going to give him more time at AAA. He only played 25 games their last year. And I'd like to see his ratings, particularly his contact, go up a bit more. But most likely he'll be at right field at some point in the season. Then we do have Dylan Cruz up, but there's no way I'm going to start him in the majors. He hasn't even gone above high A. But I do love how his ratings are developing. He's now got 85 contact potential. But I will give him a solid amount of time in spring training. He'll start at DH against lefties and play a decent amount against righties. But I think catcher, first base, second base, third base, and center are all locks, and I guess Maness is at DH. So it's competition for the backup catching spot. And then guys like Biggio, maybe Frazier. Let's see, I guess Call, McKenna, Chris Taylor, Judd Fabian. That's probably about it. Those guys will be competing for like the last two utility spots on the bench. And then the pitching staff, as I said, we have Martin Perez as our number one. I think rotation's pretty set. Perez, Gray, Gore, Strasburg, and Corbin. And I've got Grove as the sixth starter for now in spring training. Interestingly, I think I am going to run Cole Henry as a stopper. I know he wasn't good for us in his limited time as a follower last year, but I really do like his ratings as a reliever. His stuff went up by kind of a lot. And he definitely has the stamina to be a stopper since he could be a starter. But I really think his stuff will play well as a stopper, and he shouldn't allow many home runs either. It's just whether he can limit his walks, which he did struggle with when he came up last year. And then Giovanni Moran, for now, I'm going to have as the second stopper in spring training. Yeah, I didn't do much to address the bullpen. I didn't sign any guys in free agency for there. But, I mainly like to rebuild the bullpen using the waiver wire and Rule 5 draft. And so I think, I really do like Moran. I know he's only at 40 overall, but I think he could be either a second stopper. I might have him as like the lefty setup with like high leverage. And then a couple setup guys there. We do have a number of starting pitching prospects that'll give a shot in spring training. Not that they'll actually make the roster, but just to give him some experience. Adam Macko, probably start the year in Double-A. Jake Brooks, who actually just drafted. He played well in rookie ball and A-ball last year. Cole Winn, another guy we got from a trade. Susana, who's only 19. Nowhere close to being ready for the majors. Andre Lara, who's one of our top pitching prospects, will probably go to Double-A. His ratings are progressing nicely. And then this guy's not he's only 22. Doesn't have much more room to grow, but Aldo Ramirez, who actually was okay in Triple-A last year, still just 22. So not much of a prospect, but I'll give him a shot. See, I think that's all the prospects we have up. There's Hancock, too, who I'm really liking how he looks as a reliever because his stuff plays up by like 10 points, and his potential as well by, I think, 5 points. And so I think he will. I'm not sure he's going to make the team right away. There are definitely a lot of reliever spots that are in open competition. So Hancock could make the team to start off the season, but I'm sure he'll be up at some point. And then, unfortunately, Cade Cavalli did have a setback. I think it set him back by like 3 months, which was unfortunate because he could have come back kind of early in the season to be maybe a starter or good reliever for us. And then we do have Huascar Yanoa, who I mentioned the trade earlier, who will be back he might be back by the start of the regular season. But it'll just depend on how his ratings get updated after the injury. He is out of option years, which actually I did not notice when I traded him or for him. Yeah, so that could be kind of an issue. Yeah, it's mainly going to depend on what happens to his ratings. But I think that'll do it for this episode. I'll sim through spring training between episodes, and we'll start at opening day next episode and probably get up to the draft like I did in the second episode of this series. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.